There's a smell that never leaves you, the sharp, bitter stink of burning plastic fusing itself into your memory, like the aftertaste of regret. That night in Arizona, orange light flickering across my face. That's exactly what filled the air. Melted dreams, 60 grand's worth, sizzling and popping as a luxury SUV went up in flames right before a whole crowd of neighbors. It was the sort of moment you can't prepare for, where karma doesn't just show up, it makes a full spectacle, fireworks and all. I remember thinking sometimes the universe takes justice and cranks it up past well done just to make a point. My name's Liam O'Connor. If someone had told me 3 years ago that my life was about to turn into a crime thriller, the kind involving wire cutters, HOA politics, and a woman named Pamela Sterling who ruled our neighborhood like she was born wearing a crown, I probably would have laughed in their face. Yet there I was, picking through the ashes in Whispering Palms Mesa, Arizona, a place I'd hoped would be my fresh start after everything went sideways. Let me rewind a bit, take it from the top back when I was a wreck piecing my life together after a divorce that stripped me down to a skeleton budget, left me with 2 teenagers who needed something steady, and a spirit so worn out it barely sparked. 2 years of living small, real small, ramen noodles for dinner, not because I liked them, but because they fit the budget. Luxuries? Forget it. Even the morning coffee was a rare treat, just to remind myself I was still human. There was one goal on my horizon: get off the gas pump treadmill and buy a used Tesla Model Y. That was my sign I'd made it out of the dark. 20 years as a licensed electrician makes you careful, maybe even obsessive. I never cut corners, never fudged the numbers, never ignore the code. So when the car finally sat in my driveway, the charger installed became my little cathedral. Permits in order, calculations double-checked, every conduit locked in with that satisfying snap. Freedom right there in a whiff of fresh concrete and ozone. But then Pamela Sterling. The click of those designer heels down my driveway still echoes in my head. She'd just nabbed the HOA presidency, mostly because nobody else wanted the gig. A real estate agent with a blinding grin and an Audi Q5 hybrid she drove like a badge of honor. The first time she laid eyes on my charger, it wasn't neighborly curiosity. It was a hunter's stare sizing up the easiest meal. "Liam, I love seeing green energy in the neighborhood," she crooned, leaning a little too close, dropping hints about sharing resources for the community. Her real message: she wanted to plug in her hybrid anytime she felt like it, run my meter up, and never pay a cent. When I explained nicely that I couldn't just have folks pulling into my driveway whenever they pleased, her expression switched off like a flipped breaker. The mask dropped. I'd just made myself her target, and she didn't even try to hide it. From there, everything changed. Suddenly, it wasn't about community, it was about aesthetic violations and architectural review boards. Pam walked away, but not before leaving behind that taste like metal in my mouth, the feeling of trouble brewing. Then came the letter, official as they come, thick, Whispering Palms letterhead, legal sounding, demanding a retroactive architectural fee for my eyesore of a charger. They threatened fines, hundreds of dollars piling up until I'd be bled dry within a month. I did the only sane thing, called the management company, no record of any complaint. Called the city, they said my permits were flawless. Next step: Gavin, old buddy lawyer, the kind who loves making bullies squirm. He pointed me straight to Arizona, revised statute 33-1816 HOAS, can't block EV chargers. Armed with that, I walked into the next HOA meeting at the rec center, smell of floor wax, old coffee nerves thick in the air. Pam tried to steamroll me in front of everyone. I read the law plain and loud, slapped my paperwork on the table for all to see, watched her cycle through every shade of red in the crayon box. She didn't take it well. Claimed hostile environment, stormed out like she owned the place. The only sound left was Arthur Higgins' neighbor from down the street, whispering that Pam had been unraveling since her divorce, that her real estate business was tanking and she needed to feel important somewhere. Maybe anywhere. But humiliating a narcissist, that's just poking the hornet's nest. Next morning, city code enforcement rolled up anonymous report about dangerous electrical work. The officer was sheepish, inspected everything, then apologized. Told me to keep records. "Feels like harassment," he said. And he was right. A day later, utility company shows up, supposedly responding to major grid interference at my house. The lineman looked at my setup, laughed out loud. Calling SWAT for a toaster, he said. I didn't laugh. It was crystal clear Pam was using every public agency she could to bury me under bureaucracy since she couldn't win on the facts. From there, things got creepier. I'd see her Audi creeping past, snapping photos slow like a shark in the shallows. Suddenly, the neighbors got weird. Pam had started whispering that my charger was dangerous, that it messed with Wi-Fi, even threatened property values. The young families started looking at me sideways. One day at Safeway, right in the cereal aisle, she boxed me in. Her voice dropped, said she had a medical condition, needed reliable transport. And wouldn't it be a shame if the HOA found other violations on my property? She made it clear, let her use my charger or risk financial ruin. The threat hung there, smelling worse than anything at the seafood counter. That was the line. I went home and installed security cameras all over every angle of my driveway covered. I had a bad feeling Pamela Sterling was about to go off script and I wanted the footage. It started as little mind games. Charging cable found draped over the wrong side, weatherproof covers. Left unlatched tiny things that said I was here. No proof, just the feeling. Then came the sympathy play. Pam showed up, tears in her eyes, begging for help because her daughter was sick in Tucson and her car was dead. Against my better judgment, I gave her the code, told her to charge. The cameras caught what I missed. While I was inside, Pam was prowling, photographing serial numbers, fiddling with the hardware, trying to figure out how to break in. 3 hours later, she wasn't headed to Tucson, she went straight to a salon downtown. Then a twist. Arthur Higgins, the steady old neighbor, slipped into my garage one night, nervous as a cat. His wife Martha worked at the management office, and she'd managed to quietly copy some documents. What those papers showed? It was ugly. The HOA had nearly 50 grand in surplus, and Pam had been hiding it. Worse, she'd drained it, fake legal fees, shady landscaping bills, the works. The money trail pointed straight to her divorce lawyer and phantom companies. We were dealing with more than petty harassment. It was embezzlement. But before we could make a plan, Pam upped the ante straight into felony territory. It was past 2 a.m. when my phone started buzzing from the motion sensors. The camera showed Pam masked by darkness, cutting through my charging cable with industrial wire cutters. She left the wires exposed, a trap for anyone. She wasn't just angry anymore. She was dangerous. Officer Davis, the responding cop, watched the footage in silence, called it what it was, reckless endangerment. Pam peeked through her blinds, paranoia written all over her face, but didn't stop. Even after police, even after a warning post on the neighborhood Facebook group, she needed to win. 3 nights later, I woke to the sickening smell of chemicals paint. The monitor showed Pam emptying a gallon of latex over my new charger, killing it. This time I called 911 as she was still there. Officer Davis caught her paint all over her pants. She tried to bluff her way out, no luck. By now, everyone in the neighborhood knew something was up. The annual HOA meeting, usually a snooze, was a packed house. Arthur and I had charts, timelines, photos, proof of everything. Tension buzzed in the air. The truth was about to blow up. But Pam wasn't done. Out on bail, wild-eyed, she burst into the meeting shouting about conspiracies and blaming me for everything, property values, the works. When Officer Davis tried to intervene, Pam sprinted out to the lot, yelling that she'd prove my charger was a hazard. She pulled her Audi up to my Tesla, tried to jam the connector designed for a Tesla into her hybrid. She forced it, ignoring the sparks, ignoring the warnings. The crowd froze, watching in horror as electricity arced, lit up her face in a strobe of panic. Then boom, a burst like a shotgun, and flames shot out from under her car. The paint fumes ignited, turning her luxury SUV into a bonfire in seconds. Everyone scrambled back as the heat pushed us away, fire trucks on the way, Pam stumbling back in shock. Her car, her status, her whole self-image, all of it melted in a puddle of burnt plastic and aluminum. Sometimes karma doesn't whisper, sometimes it hollers. After that, the consequences were swift. Pam pleaded guilty, paid nearly $10,000 in restitution, lost her real estate license, her house, her reputation. Had to move to a bland apartment complex in Scottsdale, no one to boss around. Arthur Higgins took over the HOA, and the first thing he did was use the recovered funds to install solar panels for everyone. Whispering Palms became a true green neighborhood property. Values soared not because of stricter rules, but because people finally felt free. Funny thing, Pam burned herself out trying to control everyone, and in the end only managed to free us from her grip. It makes a guy think. How much power do we hand over to people just because they're loud? At what point does keeping order become outright tyranny? And why do we always wait until the flames are licking our toes before we take a stand? What would you have done with someone like Pam? Do you think the neighbors were partly to blame staying quiet so long? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about justice, power, and the real cost of looking the other way. And hey, if you've tangled with a Pam yourself, you're not alone. This world could use more folks willing to say enough.